Today, we are talking to the Karen Dade, who is an actress, comedian, preacher, teacher, singer, songwriter, wellness coach, and now we get to add author to those wonderful titles. Tell us about your book, Behind the Collar.
Oh, gosh, where do I even start? Well, I can tell you that the book started 7 years ago. And I know a lot of people probably think, oh, 7 years ago, what took you so long? But just because God gives you something doesn't necessarily mean that it's the right time to produce it. And I didn't understand it all in the beginning, but now it's clear to me that when I was writing the end of it and when he finally gave me permission to release it, he was like, you realize it's the 7th year. I'm like, is it? And he's like, well, 7 is the year of completion. You weren't, the process of me doing what I needed to do in you was not complete. So if you had released it earlier than that, it would have been premature.
Wow, so 7 years in the making.
Yeah.
So was it difficult to write the book itself?
Absolutely it was. It was very difficult because when you are exposing anything about your life, the good, the bad, and the ugly, it's always a hard place because people, you already know some people are going to judge you by your story. And so you have to be ready for that. You have to be okay with the fact that some people are going to applaud you for it, and some people are going to be like, oh my God, did she do that? She did that? And so you have to be at a place where you're at peace with who you are and what your past was.
Awesome. So your book is a transparent story about your life.
Very.
So was it hard to be transparent?
It probably would have been some years ago, but during this process, no. And it was very therapeutic for me. It was healing for me. It was additional level of healing. I thought I had been completely healed from it, but I hadn't. And reading the story and having to even reread it and re-edit it took me to a whole nother different levels of healing. And so I'm glad that I was able to do it. So my prayer is that the same process that I went through, being healed from it, that somebody else who actually has the same story or similar story will read it and get some additional healing or become healed from it as well.
So what type of stories did you choose to tell in the book?
Ooh, all the pivotal moments, which the moments to me were like very dark places.
Okay.
Like, I talk about the depression and what that felt like. I talk about the story of me being molested vividly, graphically. So it's not for the faint of heart, definitely not for kids, because I tell it exactly how it happened in the raw.
And so what would you say if you could look back and give yourself advice? What would you say to the younger you that was going through those hard times?
That's hard to say because I've thought about several times, like, would I even change? If I could, would I change it? But then in thinking about that, who would I then be now? Because somebody has to be victorious in something in order to let somebody else know that they can have the victory. So if it wasn't my story, then who would I be right now?
Who is it that you want to reach with Behind the Collar?
I want to reach anybody who has suffered from molestation, from abuse in relationships, who suffer from depression, because I actually experienced all of those levels. Not even realizing that I was molested until I turned 40 years old. So I lived my entire life carrying that and not even I didn't even know I was carrying it. But it makes sense now, the behaviors that I accepted and the things that I participated in was because of my initial encounter with a man.
So we talked about you being a preacher and teacher and singer and all of these wonderful things.
Yeah.
And it taking you 7 years to write this book. What do you say to the person that is functioning normally to the naked eye, but really dealing with, like you said, depression and all of those things behind the scenes?
Well, I believe that's why I say we really need to pay attention to people, because even with my behavior, there were times, say with the depression, when a person is going through depression, things about them change. Like, I shaved my head, I was wearing a bald fade, and I had pulled away from the church. And normally when those things occur, it's because something internal is going on. And I think when we have loved ones, sometimes we just be like, oh, that's just them. No, it's not just them. It's some issues. When you do something drastically, it's a reason behind that. Especially when, for me, being in church my entire life, and to just pull away, that's not normal. You're pulling away for something, or there's something that's that has a stronghold on you, that's keeping you from continuing on the right road. So I think the biggest thing is we just need to pay attention. We don't pay attention enough. We just think that, oh, they'll be all right, they'll be okay. And that's not always the case. I wish somebody had have noticed and said to me, you need help.
Absolutely.
You need to get some therapy. And that's such a stigma in the Black community.
Wow.
We just think you crazy if you get there. No.
Wow.
Sometimes you need to sit on somebody's couch and talk to somebody and talk through that.
Wow.
And even to talk to somebody who has had the same struggle.
Wow.
Because even going just to a counselor, it's hard to speak to something that you've never experienced. Unfortunately, I'm a pro, I would say, not because I want it to be, but I know it.
Right.
I understand it on a whole different level. And when you understand it on a different level, you can speak to it.
So then, speaking to, not speaking of, and you are a preacher, and sometimes we get the rep of, because you're in church, you don't need therapy, you don't need counseling. What do you say to people in our culture who fight that stereotype of our culture, our people, or our race? We don't go to therapy. We just deal with it. What goes on in this house stays in this house.
Yeah, and it shouldn't.
Okay.
Because it damages you.
Okay.
And then when you do realize it, like for me, I wish I had somebody to tell me to go to counseling. And the book is entitled Behind the Collar, because all these things happened before I even accepted my calling. And in the midst of me accepting my calling, right after I accepted it, is when the revelation came that I had been molested. So now I got to deal with the fact, God, you done called me to be a preacher, and I don't feel worthy. I don't feel like it's why me? And I'm struggling with this. I don't even know who I am. I don't know my identity. I don't know who I'm supposed to be in you. The woman that I thought that I would be at that point, the woman I thought that I would be was totally different than who I discovered I was. So having to relearn how to even be a woman, how to have self-esteem, how to know that I don't have to accept certain things, or I don't have to allow somebody to treat me a certain way. That's hard to relearn to relearn who you are all over again.
Wow. So then, and I'm glad you're getting emotional about it, because it just shows that you absolutely care about this story and why this story is so powerful. What do you say to the woman that was you before you had to relearn? What do you say to her?
I say to her, it's okay to accept the fact that you were abused and that it was not your fault. Because a lot of times we think, I should have said something, or I should have spoke up about it, or why did I participate? And when you look at, for me, when the time that it was in the 70s. So, we didn't have the media stuff, and we didn't have access to the internet. I grew up in a home where I was a preacher's kid. So we couldn't even listen to certain music. We couldn't go to parties. I mean, totally sheltered in that type of atmosphere. So when you're not exposed to certain things, you will feel sometimes that, it was your fault. I should have known better. But when you're naive, when you don't know any better, you just don't know any better.
Right.
And it's not the child's responsibility to be an adult. It's the adult's responsibility to be an adult. And I want whoever reads this to know, you forgive yourself. It's not even your fault, but still forgive yourself for the fact that you didn't know. And that it's okay that you have these issues, you have these struggles, and it's okay to embrace the fact that, okay, this happened to me. Because you have to deal with it. You have to deal with the fact that it did happen. Because it did happen. Now, after you realize that it happened, then you need to labor before God. Because it's steps to this. You have to labor before God. You have to ask Him to heal you of all these wounds. And again, it's okay to talk to somebody. We all need somebody. We are not islands unto ourselves, and sometimes we need to be transparent. And so for me, I knew that I had to be transparent with this story, because I just want some woman not to have to go through the total process that I had to go through, the total breaking, the depression and all that. Because it's going to come if you don't get help. It's going to come if you don't get healed. And ultimately, you will take your life.
So how does this book provide that healing?
It tells everything. It tells from the beginning, how I grew up, Because we think because we grew up in the church, you ain't gonna have no issues. That's a
not
lie. from every pit of hell. You have more issues.
You do.
When you grew up in the church, and depending upon if your dad was a preacher, your mom was a preacher, you're sheltered. And I want her to know that she can look back over her life and evaluate everything. And it's not gonna be easy. It's not an easy process, but I want her to know that it's possible. Because I'm a living witness that you can't overcome. I'm just thank God that He took me from being a victim to a victor.
Absolutely.
Because it didn't have to happen. I could have been that one that took her life, because I was real close.
Yeah.
I could have been the one that's on depression or depressed and on medication. It was close. So you can't easily lose your mind. I prayed for death. You know, I knew I couldn't take my own life, but I was like, God, you're the giver of life and death. You can just take this away from me. Take me out of this. And so whoever it is that reads this book, whether because it's females and males that suffer from this,
Absolutely.
I want them to see the steps that it took for me. And maybe they'll identify with a step where I was. They'll be in that same place, and they can see the recovery that they can take, what they can do to recover and get past it, and because you never get over it. You just have a peace with it.
You do. Awesome. So then let's talk about the details of the book. So you talk about molestation, and then you also talk about your dating and personal life. Does those two things kind of tie into each other?
Absolutely.
How so?
Yeah, because when you have been exposed to something earlier than you should be, it changes your whole mentality as to how you process things. So I found out when I was writing this that every man had the same attributes. They all had to be a little older. They all were a little controlling. I mean, they all had the same characteristics of one to the other. So it becomes a cycle and a pattern that has to be broken, but you can't break it, because I didn't think I had low self-esteem. But when you look at the stuff that you accepted,
right.
You had to have low self.
Right.
You had to have, because why would you allow a man to demean you? Why would you allow a man to have enough control over you to make you do certain things that in your right mind, when I look back, I'm like, who was this chick? Like, yeah, your certain behaviors dictate that you do have low self-esteem. And we don't see it because we just think low self-esteem is you don't dress a certain way, you look homely. No, I was dressed up. I always been cute. Yeah. You know, really on the surface, I always was a dresser. I always had nice clothes. I always fixed my hair up. Always, you know what I'm saying? So all those things were apparent. I was always in the limelight. Right. Because I'm the preacher's kid. You know, we in the choir, we singing everywhere. We always exposed.
Yes, always exposed.
So yeah, it's it's a process.
Let's talk about the women functioning in ministry.
Well, and that's why I use the collar, because even in the midst of like I mentioned, the revelation of what had happened to me, it was right after I had accepted my calling into the ministry. And so all of these things happened way before all the damage that I had occurred to me way before I accepted my calling. So the collar can really be used as a metaphor for anything. Just for me, it was the collar, because it was all that led up to me accepting my calling and moving into it and trying to, preach to the people and in a bad marriage. You know, so the thing, and that's the thing, until you're totally healed from something, it's hard to really even have a good relationship, because even after I got that revelation, I got married, which I never should have, because I wasn't whole. And so I married the same type of man that I had been dealing with long before I even accepted the calling. So so the collar for me was everything that happened to me before I accepted the calling and even felt worthy enough to accept the calling. That took a long time, because I was like, me, God? Did you see what all that I have done?
That's honest, right?
Yeah, really, Jesus? And I mean, so many times I beat myself up coming into church, sitting in the back, on the back row, and didn't want nobody to see me, because I felt like they could see the damage. I felt like they could see the dirt. I felt like they could see the sin. Even though I wasn't even participating in it, it was still a cloud over me. When I came to this church, I was so broken. Yeah. Oh my God, I was so broken. I was like, I just want to come. I want to sit in the back. I want to be in ministry. I don't want nobody to talk to me. I'm not going to sing in the choir. I'm not going to do. And so, those things helped kept me from just understanding again who I was.
Wow. So we're used to seeing the comedic side of you.
Yeah.
What side of you, because there are many, can we expect to see while reading this book?
Oh my God, everything.
Okay.
You're gonna see every side of me. The comedic side, I mean, I guess I had it a little bit as a little girl. My sister said I used to put on plays. I don't even remember. So it's just amazing how God does what he does. Because I never in a million years would even think that I could have this much. I'm just as goofy and silly as they come. My daughter says, Mom, people really saw how you acted. I'm like, people probably know. But it's only because of the joy of the Lord. It's because of the restoration that I went through. So in the book, though, they're going to experience every emotion. I tried to be as raw as I could so that people could feel what I felt in this book. From every moment of pain, from every moment of abuse, I told it exactly how it was. And so they're gonna go through a gamut of emotions. They're gonna be happy at times, they're gonna be sad, they're gonna cry some tears. Because you can feel my tears in this book. You can feel my pain in this book.
And that just builds the anticipation for it. Like, I personally can't wait to read more of it. When is the book coming out? And, tell us about when you're going to be releasing it and what we can expect on that day.
Well, December 14th is the book release. Yay!
Awesome.
It's a book release / birthday party, so I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to turn up a little bit another year.
That's right.
To God be the glory for that. So, yeah, I wanted to make it a production. The actress part of me always kicks in, so I don't ever want to do anything basic. So the book releases from 6 to 8.
Okay.
And then after that, I'll have a few people speak about, just me and giving me words of encouragement, whatever that comes from their heart. And then I'll get up and speak, and then I have a live band, a DJ, of course, and some food.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's gonna be a production.
And so, how do people register? How do they RSVP for such a?
Well, everything is on Eventbrite. Okay. So the key word is behind the collar. So if you go on Eventbrite, you'll get everything. It's only $25, which I don't think is expensive, considering you get an autographed book comes with that, and the food and live entertainment. So that we entertain the entire time.
But if we cannot make it, where will the book be available?
Well, it will be available on Amazon.
Nice.
But if you want an autographed copy, that's going to be different. You'll have to get that through me. An autographed copy is $20. A regular book will be $15.
December 14th.
Yes.
Register via Eventbrite.
Yes.
And where can they follow you at? Because, you're not just a writer. There's so many things. If they want to get in shape, they can reach out. They can be an actress. Where can we follow you?
Well, I am on Facebook, under Karen Dade, and then I have 2 pages. I have Special K's Comedy Corner. That's Special KS, all K's Comedy Corner, and then Behind the Collar I have a page for that as well for the book. And then Instagram, I am Karen Dade. On Twitter, I am Karen Dade, and on LinkedIn, Karen Dade.
Awesome. This has been an amazing interview. It was such a pleasure to be here with you and hear your awesome story. One last thing you want to tell your followers or future friends?
I just want to tell you all and give an encouraging word that if you are out there and you are suffering from any type of abuse, be it from your past, be it from your present, God is an ever-present God. He is amazing. He can heal any wound, any broken place that you have. And my prayer is, I'm praying for anybody and everybody who's suffering from that. And when you get the book, I promise you, it is going to bless your soul. It is going to help you to understand maybe some behaviors that you see in yourself, but haven't really understood the depth of it or the root of it. So get that book and come out and celebrate with me. Behind the Collar.